Real to Real 360. K-Wise.
Peace, God.
Bring that beat in, kid.
Indeed.
Peace.
Yeah. What's going on, party people? Welcome to the Real to Real 360 show. Let's get it in. We do the knowledge and wisdom so you can understand. Real to Real 360 shows in full command. We changing the game for how it all was taught. From honest to freedom to an independent thought. Yo, the show is here to bring about a change for real. To lighten everyone so we all know the deal. 360 degrees is a fact. We created the show to give our love back to our communities so we can know what's going on and give them the support from knowledge to porn. So if you're ready to learn, then it's time to go. Sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Peace. Peace and blessings. What's going on? To Allah's mighty 5% nation of Gods and Earths, to all the human families of the planet Earth, give you a love, peace, and happiness salute. Welcome you to another episode of the Real to Real 360. We got a good one for you right now, so let's just jump right on into it. I'm going to bring on my co-host with the most, none other than my brother in God, Yoshi-Mod, a.k.a. Mr. PhD himself. Peace and blessings, Lord. How you been?
Peace, peace, peace to all our followers, listeners, and subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you're touching that like and subscribe button on that YouTube. Make sure that you're getting all the notifications because we have a lot of shows coming up until Christmas time, and they all are going to be very impactful. But today, we have our own brother. He's worked with the youth. He's worked with the adults, and his name is Rayshawn Wilson. So can we bring him on?
Absolutely. Peace and blessings.
Peace, brother. Peace, brother. How you doing today?
What's up, everybody? Good evening. Good evening. So glad to be here, man. I appreciate the invite, fellas.
Appreciate you coming on because we've been wanting to have individuals who work with the incarcerated population and see some of the programs that they have for them. So at this moment in time, I want you to introduce yourself, tell the people what you actually do and how you work.
So first and foremost, I'm very glad to be talking about this topic for another reason, for a variety of reasons. Number one, I'm a formerly incarcerated individual myself. Mm-hmm. So when I was 18, I did 2 years, in prison. So I just want to get that out the way first. Mm-hmm. If nothing else, it gives me some validation. Mm-hmm. I'm one of the few people that can talk about incarceration from a personal experience, a professional experience, and from an educational experience. And so hopefully throughout this broadcast, I can give you 3 different points of views that will kind of shed some light on, on this topic. So outside of, the personal experience, I've had the professional experience where I've had the pleasure of serving as a juvenile probation officer. I've been in leadership positions, running halfway houses for felony adult offenders who were leaving the system that primarily had drug and alcohol problems. And then from an educational standpoint, I have a bachelor's degree in sociology with a concentration in criminology. I have a master's degree in criminal justice administration, where I focus my thesis strictly on reentry. Mm-hmm. And then I'm currently working on my PhD. I'm in dissertation mode right now, where I'm primarily doing my dissertation on children of incarcerated parents. And I want to make sure at some point through this broadcast, as I'm talking about, mass incarceration, that I talk about those silent victims of children of incarcerated parents. When we talk about the criminal justice system, man, a lot of times we miss the beat and miss an opportunity to talk about children of incarcerated parents. There are literally approximately 1.5 million children who have a parent, at least one parent that's incarcerated, and majority of them people look like me and you.
Indeed. I have a similar history as you do for as being a youth and incarcerated as well, and able to change and make a difference in our lives and going forward. But how is it for you working in the capacity that you worked in, knowing that you have yourself been behind the wall?
Yeah, it's interesting, man. When I was able to become a juvenile probation officer, man, it was by the grace of God. It's a county position. At that time, like I said, I had that felony theft conviction, and it was really about networking, man. I had a woman who, a very influential woman here in Ohio. She was the first black woman to ever serve on the Ohio Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. She was the one, quite honestly, that believed in me, man, and helped me, excuse me, bless you, and helped me, pull through to get that, to get that position. It was exciting in the beginning, man. It was exciting because, you got this black male who, not too long ago, who looked and did everything a lot of these kids was doing. And so my goal as a juvenile probation officer, they tell you, is public safety and protect the community or whatever, and hold these kids, accountable. Mm-hmm. And what I learned, man, just like being in the adult system, is that it's a spiral effect for a lot of these young kids, man. It's, once you get into the system and you get on, probation or parole, a lot of times they make it very difficult. And what I mean by that is that, they want to take you through a lot of hoops. One of the things, primarily things that they wanted a lot of kids to do, counseling. And it wasn't that they didn't need counseling, but it was hard to find black males who are therapists. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I didn't share is that I became a therapist in the state of Ohio. So I'm a licensed therapist in the state of Ohio. And I did that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I knew that there was a shortage of black males being therapists. Two, I knew that not only being a therapist, but I knew that there was a shortage of black males that was willing to work with the justice-involved population, whether it was adolescents or at the adult level. And so, I had opened my business up, man, at one point, strictly to work with those hard to reach, individuals that, a lot of people just didn't want to work with, for whatever reason. So being a juvenile probation, it was, entry level position. You really not making no money, but you serving to try to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And I used to give, whether some probation, man, I used to give these kids a lot of chances to do right. Giving them, trying to, use my own story as a motivation or what have you. And, look, you able to reach some, but, what I tell folks, man, whether they juveniles or whether at the adult level, here's the hard truth. Sometimes, man, you just can't compete with what the streets got to offer. Mm-hmm. So while these jobs out here is denying people and telling them no, look, man, the streets, the doors is always open, right? And they always gonna have an opportunity to get out there and hustle. You know what I mean? And so sometimes it's hard to compete against, what the streets got, have to offer, man. So overall it was a rewarding job. I will tell you and be quite transparent. It was difficult because people who knew me, they like, nigga, you the police now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You you the police, right? You got cuffs. You can go get a warrant. Now you the police. Mm-hmm. And so for me, some of these kids I had, their parents knew me. Their parents grew up with me. Their parents may have hustled with me. Mm-hmm. Or, whatever the case may be. And so they looked at me like I was the police. Mm-hmm. And that meant too that, in certain cases, I had to change up. I couldn't go to, my barbershop I went to because, the barbershop, y'all know the barbershop is where it goes down at. They talking, you know what I mean? So, they looked at me, some of them looked at me like you the police now. Right. So you got to do things, I had to do things different. Mm-hmm. But overall, man, and my career, I did it for a couple of years and it ended. I'm going to tell y'all this real quick. This is when it ended. I had a dude who was a high profile gang member, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the conditions of probation was that he had to be in at 9:00. And so when you first get a young kid on probation, you go through all the rules, number by number, have him sign it. And I was like, told him like, you got to be in at 9:00. And here's what my man told me. He said, with all due respect, Mr. Wilson, he was like, I'm not coming in at 9:00. He said, I make more money after hours than what you make in a whole month. And he was like, and I know you ain't coming out here after dark. Oh, by the way, how's that newborn daughter of yours that was just born? Right?
Right.
So it was at that point in my mind, I'm like, shit, you right. Like, I ain't coming, you know what I mean? Like, I ain't checking for you. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't no dummy. You know what I mean? Like, And so it was, it wasn't too long after that. Now working with the adults, man, is a lot different. Especially being at a halfway house, their mentality is different. Them brothers just came home. I tell people, look, the majority of people, once they've been in prison, man, they don't want to go back. They don't want to go back. They just don't know how not to go back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Nobody wakes up and be like, you know what? I think I want to go do some shit that's going to put me back in prison for the next, couple of years or what have you. It's not that they don't, it's not that they want to go back. They don't know how. And for many of these individuals, man, all they know is hustling. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our prison institutions, look, let me put it to you this way. Let me throw some numbers at you. On a national level, man, the average person that's spending time in prison is less than 2 years. That's the average time. Right. So I use myself as an example who did 2 years. When you go into a prison to do 2 years, if you're trying to go get your GED or get on the list for any type of trade or whatever case may be, you got to be doing some time.
Right.
So a lot of these cats, man, are going in and they coming right back out. They're not getting the necessary help that's needed. Mm-hmm. So by the time you come out, what skills do you have that's different? You did nothing but lay it down. Mm-hmm. Your mindset is still to change. Your what you know is still the same, or what have you. And you going right back to the same neighborhoods that they got you back there in the first place. Right. And then the expectation, if you're on parole, is that you need to get a job within 90 days. Mm-hmm. You need to be in counseling. You need to be doing this. You need to be paying restitution. And you want to do all those things. Mm-hmm. But you're like, shit, I got to work first. Mm-hmm. So how am I going to go to work and count is during the time when I need to be at work. Mm-hmm. My boss ain't trying to let me leave because they need me here. You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
So when we talk about, systemic racism and how, the system gets you in this spiral that, a lot of times black men can't get out of. Mm-hmm. And it's detrimental, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a mindset change. And I catch a lot of slack for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. So we always talk about how, the system, the white man or what have you, does this to us, does that to us or what have you. And I push back a little bit and say, yeah, they do. But a lot of times we don't help ourselves. Right. We don't help ourselves. Right. So we give them a reason to lock our ass up. Mm-hmm. Right. Give them a reason to lock our ass up. Like, dude, listen, I don't care anywhere across the state, man. Ain't nobody, you shouldn't be standing on the block no more. Mm. They know you ain't out there selling Girl Scout cookies, man. It's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Right. So of course they're going to run up on you. Right. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah. But at the same time, I understand too that everybody ain't cut working at Mickey D's or doing X, Y, and Z. It's slow money. Mm-hmm. So it's a mindset shift, man. And I know I'm rambling and just kind of going.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because
I'm kind of off the idea.
With that type of mindset, what I was going to lead into was people get addicted to hustling. Just like selling drugs, people get addicted to hustling. Now, as a juvenile, what are some of the things that we can do to help prevent them touching the streets? Is it education? Is it job programming? What is it that we can do to help? Because growing
all of that, man, all of that. It's about pouring resources into the community. Listen, man, the climate and the culture of these generations has changed. Mm-hmm. We're it's technology driven. Mm-hmm. We got to pour into our communities and help teach these brothers how to build websites, how to use the computer for good. Mm-hmm. Things like that. You know what I mean? We got to teach them. I was just thinking in our, like in our school system in Ohio, when I was in school, in high school, we had things like home economics, industrial arts, right, and stuff like that, where, it was teaching you how to do things. Now, those things ain't in the schools no more. Mm-hmm. So what are we teaching them? Mm-hmm. How are we keeping black boys' attention so that they want to come to school? And the other thing too is from a recruitment standpoint, is that they need to see more brothers that look like them that's in the classroom. You know how many black teachers I had from black men that I had from K through 12? One.
Right.
One. The rest of them was all white, men or white women or black women. But where are black men at that want to be in education? One. Think about that. One black man from K through 12. I had one.
And
even in college, I had one black male in college.
This is the thing that we speak about. We need to see more black men in a positive role with our youth, period. Whether it be in the school system, whether it be in law enforcement, whether it be anywhere. You know what I mean? We need to see more and show a different demographic than what they're used to. Because all they see is the drug dealers and the gangbangers.
And it's attractive to them.
Right.
And the parents are getting younger and younger. And so what we're doing is that we're seeing a lot of generational trauma that's being passed down from generation to generation. You know what I mean? And that hurts too in a lot of different ways. I'm talking about a lot of different types of trauma is being passed down from generation to generation. So they are just reacting and mimicking what what they see. And there's a thing, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of it, called adverse childhood experiences. Of course. Right? And so you take that little test or whatever, and the research suggests that if you have more than three adverse childhood experiences before the age of 18, these are the things that you're at risk of.
My thing is this: it doesn't help to give hope or insight to a person who's been in the streets hustling for most of their days. They go and get incarcerated. Now they got a track record. But then you come back out and they talking about the only way you can do anything is you get a decent job. Well, a decent job, the average right now, minimum wage is still $7.25. And so if I know that $7.25 an hour is going to take 3 weeks, 4 weeks for me to get $100, $200, $300, and then I'm getting taxed on that, but I know I can make triple that amount in a day. Where's the checks and balances? You know what I'm saying?
Have child support.
I'm drawn back into the system that I know the risk, but I know the reward, the negative reward that's going to come forward versus, that plays a lot psychologically on the mindset of our youth, of all of our brothers and sisters who was incarcerated from what they was doing. So it's like a revolving entrapment door.
Yeah, man. Resources is everything, man. You get a community of, let's just say, I'm just throwing a number out there of 100,000, right? And the resources that are available are only there to provide for 25,000 people. What you think them other $75,000? I mean, what you think them other 75,000 people gonna do? They gonna rob them 25,000 people to make sure that they get their fair share cut because the resources ain't there. And so I understand the mind of a hustler and why I don't have to condone it. I can understand it. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, what it continues to do is to kill and really tear apart our black, our community and our homes. Think about, and I know this ain't, this is not even the topic. You can bring me on for this one, but let's just think about the concept of marriage these days, right? I tell sisters, I get sisters, they be like, I don't understand why I'm single. And I'll be like, it ain't you. There's just not a lot of men anymore who totally believe in the concept of marriage. They're just not. So when our parents and grandparents, they was getting married at 18, 19 and staying married 50, 60 years, bro, that's not it no more. They're not seeing the rewards of being being married for a long time, for getting married, period, for a variety of different reasons. And let's not even talk about the climate and the culture of our community, of our society, has shifted from a sexuality standpoint.
Right.
Was constantly being promoted and driven. Like, I don't even want to go there.
It's funny. We're touching different taboo topics at this moment, and a major thing is when it comes down to relationships, incarceration. You're starting to find women who are going into the penal system to find husbands, and you at that point, you, like we was talking about in the beginning, having parents who are incarcerated. You having a role model who is behind the wall looking at 10, 15, 20 years. So how is this individual able to teach you how to become a man? And during this period in time, it's not just the men that's incarcerated, it's a lot of women who are going to prison as well. So that the climate, the culture of the world has definitely shifted to the point where women are starting to be attracted to doing street stuff. Young men are starting to turn into each other. Their hormones and stuff are starting to turn and be attracted to other men because they're being incarcerated at young ages. So why you think that this is starting to become the culture? Because the culture is a murder culture, for one.
It is.
It's not a loving culture. It's a murder culture. So how do you think that when a youth is incarcerated, do you feel like he's already been institutionalized, and do he need counseling to change his mindset first before you do talk about putting him in a job?
Man. I'll go back to that, man, and saying that changing the mindset is everything. From, we've been used to, even myself growing up, was a hustle mentality first, right? Like I watched, my mom died in prison. So, prior to her, living in some of the, I watched my mom hustle. I was looking out my bedroom window. That's all I knew was to hustle. So, and going through, foster care, I ain't have nobody around that was showing me anything different. So when the system put me out there in terms of foster homes and stuff, all I knew was to hustle. But it's a mindset, though. Like my mindset changed. Look, when I was in prison, man, it was like, and it was like, let me be clear. And I got a whole book that's out. It's called Lionheart, Coming From Where I'm From. It's a award-winning book, right? And I talk about this chapter, man, in the book where I talk about how I wanted to change my mindset and wanted something different than what I was presented with or what I knew of, right? And so my mindset started to change while I was even in there. I started thinking about going to a community college, and it was a couple OGs that was in there, man, that saw me out there playing flag football. They were like, and I never even thought about it. Matter of fact, I didn't even think that I could go to college because I had went to prison. So for me to get out, spend a year at a community college, walk on and play college football for 4 years, it was a mindset shift, bro. And I'm going to tell you what really changed my whole mindset and really my self-esteem is when I got my GED while I was in prison. When I got my GED while I was in prison, bro, that was a game changer for me. And I wasn't even, look, if you read my book, like I wasn't even supposed to get into the GED program. What I did was I was working in the food hall, and I would show up at the school all the time just to help tutor other people. And finally, the teacher was like, "Do you have your GED?" I was like, "No, I'm on a waiting list, but I'm not going to be able to get in because I'm going to be." She was like, "Come see me tomorrow," and she got me in. Like I wasn't like, had I not got that GED while I was in prison, I have no idea how this all would have, how any of this would have played out. But it is a mindset, man. Like men think that they just gonna leave out these prisons, man, and just change. Now you got to start thinking about that shit the moment you walk into them prison walls and be thinking like, I don't want to live like this no
more. Right. And that's something that we need to address on the juvenile level, because there's programs that these facilities are slating and they're telling the state and the city that they're performing, and these youth aren't getting a lot of the things that they need, and they're coming back as soon as you open up the door. As soon as you open up the door, they're coming right back because they're not receiving the stuff that they need inside. And then when they go back to the communities, to the homes, like you said, that they're fighting, they're selling drugs, they're doing all the above. So how can we make sure that the state or the facility that are housing and supposed to be giving safety and security for our youth perform what they're supposed to perform and give the youth what they're supposed to get?
I think it all starts with going and talking to legislators, man. Like figuring out who's the legislators in your district, having a conversation with them, going inside. You know, we take for granted about starting our own nonprofits, you know what I mean, and working with populations that people don't want to work with, and going and asking for money. Like I'm in the process now of putting my own, you know, my own nonprofit together strictly for children of incarcerated parents. Why? Not only because there's a need, but because there is no organization in my city that is strictly working with children of incarcerated parents. Despite that, Columbus, Ohio, my county, is one of the top counties of returning offenders. And I know those offenders have children. So we got to be more proactive with our voices, you know, while we out here screaming, you know, Black Lives Matter, which they do. We got to talk it. We got to talk it. We got to walk it like we talk it.
Right.
And we have to be the ones to show up and you know, and do programming. You know, go grab you 5 youth that, you know, that you just want to work with on your own. A lot of those dudes, they just want somebody to be there and show them that they care. That's what they want. Look, man, I was coaching football this year, you know, little league football, 14-year-old kids, man. And, you know, and of course my son was out there too. But out of 40 players, man, 40 of those men that was out there, you ain't seen hardly nobody's dad that was out there. None of them. So when they see me, I'm showing up supporting my son. You know what I mean? I'm buying practice jerseys so that everybody can look. You know, and I don't want didn't want no recognition for that, but I wanted to let them know, man, like these coaches, like we out here, like we care about y'all. And we want, you know, sometimes that's all it takes. Grab a youth that you know that's struggling and just embrace them and be like, look, I got you. I don't want to see you get in no more trouble. Let me show you a different route. You know what I mean? And I've done that, you know, not just with juveniles, but, you know, in the past, you know, I've worked with adults too, man, who, you know, they knew my story and be like, man, I want to go to college, or, you know, how do I write a book, or, you know, whatever the case may be, and just lead these people in the right, you know, direction. But we got to talk to our legislators and the people at our local level your council people who have the ability to send out this money.
Now, the question that I was going to ask was, growing up, we knew that it was a lot of young males, young boys that was being incarcerated. Now, it's just as equal as young females that are being incarcerated. What do you think is being attractive or attracting the young females to crime?
It's no different than what was attracting to the males. It's no different. And these past couple of generations, man, they have access to a lot more than what we did. Just, I mean, think about it. A lot of transactions now are being done without no cash ever being. You can do Cash App, you can do Apple. Like they got access to a lot more than what we did. It's just the bottom line. So, and the same things that are attracting them, you know, the young dudes, it's attractive to them too. It's about money and lack of resources and lack of parental involvement. Because again, I told you this before, a lot of these mothers are having these kids younger and younger. And so they don't know no better. They ain't never been taught. So how you going to bring a kid into the world and you a baby your damn self? What you going to teach them?
True. Now,
what you going to teach them?
the thing about that is our parents had babies young, but they had people that was guiding them
Yes.
and was being able to talk to them and teach them how to become a mother, how to become a wife, how to become a husband, and all these different things. Um, when we look at and we touched a little bit about children of incarcerated parents, how can we get the parents to be more involved when they come home with their children, because a lot of them still have that mentality of prison and things of that nature? How can we help them connect back with their child and be in
Yeah.
their child's life?
Well, quite honestly, man, it starts before they even go home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need programs that that are helping build relationships with their children prior to, you know, them being released. So that means having programs where that's helping kids to be able to go and visit their parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Some of these parents are incarcerated and they so far away, they don't have no access to go see their dad. How they gonna get there?
Right.
And don't be in federal prison,
Right.
which is states away. How are you gonna get there?
Right.
Right? So, you know, and they make it so difficult and expensive to even have phone calls.
Mm. Okay.
So those relationships and that relationship building, though, starts prior to them even being released. Like, you can't spend 5, 7+ years in prison and come out and thinking that you about to, you know, just be, you know, super dad or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can be there, but there's a lot that's been happened. There's a lot that's been missed, and there should be programs, man, and there's ways that to help reconnect those parents with those kids. And a lot of that is circled around, you know, reentry work that a lot of states should be more, you know, involved in, you know, helping parents connect. You know, there's, you know, I talk about, you know, in my dissertation, I'm talking about the, you know, the importance of, you know, letters, helping kids write letters,
Mm-hmm.
you know, type letters out, video conferencing. So just in case we are in a, excuse me, a technology driven society. So why can't we have video conferencing in these prisons? And you had you'd be able to help these kids establish, you know, relationships through video conferencing. We don't got to be, you know, sitting there together.
Mm-hmm.
Or reading programs. I've heard of, you know, programs where dads read books and then it's recorded and they ship that stuff to their kids. Like, those things, man, are priceless.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are priceless, man, that kids will, you know, remember to see. At least my dad tried.
Mm-hmm.
Even while he was there. At least my mom tried while, you know, now a lot of that is contingent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just in terms of, what the crime was. Did it, you know, was it against their parent? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things, but for the most part, man, you know, I really truly believe that a lot of these parents that are incarcerated, they want to build relationships with their kids
Mm-hmm.
while they're in prison. You
How
wait
do
till
we-
afterward, it makes it difficult.
How do we gain, or should I say, we look for the retrust once a bond is broken between the system and parenthood and then the youth growing? How do we first repair the broken heart? You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the main things, like what you were talking about earlier. The main thing is, how will I be received when I come back home? Will I be looked at differently, or you know, and they going, am I shameful for doing what I did? You know, am I remorseful? You know, so much going on in a person who comes back home, you know, because, you know, you've been gone for a while. Things have changed, but in our mind state, things are still the same from where we left off.
Yeah. And I will say, man, that, you know, unfortunately, I think the longer an individual is in prison, the harder it is for them to come back and adjust, to family, the workplace. I mean, think about it. if you were an individual right now that just got out this year and you did 15 to 20 years, think about that. The world is moving so much faster and quicker than what you did 20 years ago, bro. And so what I'm saying is that, and keep in mind that I was telling you that, a lot of these individuals are coming home where they may not necessarily be on probation or parole. So they just out there. So who's supporting them? And that piece that you're talking about, brother, just in terms of, how they're viewed, that's a big piece in terms of for an individual, in terms of first how they view themselves, which is why, and how society views them, which is why you notice, language has everything. So I don't say ex-offenders no more. I say justice involved. And I tell people out in the community, even, employers that don't say that. That's why there's this big push too. And hopefully in y'all state that they're doing it, where they're they're banning the box on these applications. And there's a lot more employers now that are trying to give individuals an opportunity to have these livable, wageable jobs. But that's why it's also important too. I express and push entrepreneurship. I know a guy, man, that how long did Jamil? He did over 15 years in prison, and this is what he did. And I haven't talked to him in a while, but this is what he did. He started a mobile pedicure business right down south somewhere. And he got a truck to where the ladies can get on the truck. You can have 2, 3, 4, 5 people and have people in there getting pedicures at the same time. He became a millionaire off that shit, bro. He don't got to ask nobody for a dime.
Now, Mr. Wilson, we have a question from Dr. Angela Harris. And she says, why men boyfriends don't support their women while they're locked up? She worked at an Ohio female prison, and men were not visiting their ladies, but the ladies always hold it down for the men.
It's a different, it's a different mindset, man. It's almost like, why, if you was to say, why men cheat more than women cheat. I mean, it's subjective.
It is subjective. Now, I have a question about
I was gonna say, like, it's subjective, man. And then I think really it all depends on, a lot of that depends on what that relationship was like prior to them ladies going to prison.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you was just some old, random chick that we was just, you may have been my girlfriend or whatever, but that's something totally different if you was my wife. You know what I mean? And this goes the same way, I think you do see a lot more women that hold these brothers down, than the other way. But it's like, I think at the end of the day, it really depends on what that relationship was like prior to them going to prison.
Now, Mr. Wilson, do you think that they should open the restorative justice piece out to the family of individuals who are behind the wall, just like they do with the victims, so they can repair some of these relationships before individuals come home?
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's a lot of research that's out there on restorative justice practices. As a matter of fact, I'm a huge advocate of having restorative justice practices in our schools. You know what I mean? When you implement restorative justice, practices, which is circled around, number one, is circled around forgiveness, and it's circled around community. When you think about the restorative, like, it's circled around community and having a group of people surround an individual and embracing them and being able to talk and have conversations about not only the harm that was done, but how do we embrace you and bring you back, reintegrate you back into this community to where you don't go back. I love restorative justice practices, man. I mean, and it doesn't get enough credit. And again, there's a lot of evidence-based stuff that says that, those type of practices work. At the end of the day, man, I think that communities and states do the bare minimum in terms of providing the appropriate resources to make the type of impact that's needed. Why? Because we know that prisons and are about money. We know that we understand that ain't no secret. We understand that prisons is about money. And not only that, like, brothers don't even understand. I had a brother that was bragging the other day about getting, about being on probation and not going to prison. Yeah, you avoided prison, but in the prosecutor's mind, they got you on that felony, bro, that you can't ever get off that record. That's a life sentence. So again, it's just like this mindset shift, man. But I love restorative justice practices, man. I mean, those
goes to say, like,
those
they don't have the funding. You know what I'm saying? They're not really pushing the motive of more funding into the reform system, where they're putting more money in the privatary sector for prison housing, more so than the program to help the rehabilitation.
Man, it's almost like y'all heard the saying, listen, you make time for the things that's important to you. Same thing when it comes to money. You're going to put your money where the things that's important to you.
Right.
And when it comes to Black men's well-being, it's not really a high priority. Like right now, I'm real big in having conversations. There's two things that I'm real big on right now. One, children of incarcerated parents, and two, and Black men and mental health. We don't talk about Black men and mental health enough,
right?
And what that looks like, and that's a whole new different, and Black men and mental health, especially after you've been incarcerated,
right?
What that looks like, what that feels like. How does that impact your relationships? How does that impact your employment? How does that just impact your overall well-being? Because prison is a culture in itself, and depending on where you at, that shit can be traumatizing, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, just the 2 years that I spent in prison, I witnessed and saw some stuff, man, that to this day, I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about those things enough, man, with Black men and mental health. We just kind of, push that stuff under the rug. And, there's something to be said about emotional incarceration and being emotionally constipated and what that means to be able to break free from all of that. Whew.
Now, Dr. Wilson, how can we take the glory out of going to prison? Because in the Black and brown community, it's always celebrated that individuals done went to prison, they done did time, things of that nature. Some individuals even get parties thrown for them for coming home. And we don't give the same energy for children and young men and women who are getting educations and getting these degrees. So how can we change the mentality of not saying shaming individuals who get incarcerated, but not glorifying going to prison?
Yeah, mindset shift. I think I will say this even more so. And I grew up in the 90s, man, and we know the type of music that was being pushed in the 90s, man. But I think there's a huge responsibility on our musicians, man, and what they're putting out. The more that we continue to listen, our young people listen to this stuff, it's almost like, think about it. The more you hear something and see an image of something repeatedly over and over and over again, it becomes your reality. Right? And if multiple people are saying the same thing, it becomes their reality. So if all you hear is talking about shooting people, going to prison, popping pills, or whatever the case may be, a lot of these people don't understand between art and real life.
Right.
And they're still trying to mimic that. You know what I mean? And so I think that, it has to be this mindset shift. And it has to be like folks like us and other people who are having a voice and saying, like, no, this is not okay. Like, you need to want something different and stop passing around these generational curses. Because again, look, I tell people that's out there, that's hustling. I remind them, I tell them this, look, man, the streets don't love you.
Right.
They just taking you away from the people that do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's real.
Yeah.
But we got to make sure that we have a voice and we find ways like this show, like, man, you know, this show need to be plastered all over the country.
Right.
We need to be listening to this and having conversations about Black men and being incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
Man, listen, some of the most talented people are behind bars.
Right.
If you can get in there, man, and you can see some of the creativity, some of the artists that's up in there, some of the musicians that's up in there, or what have you, and some of these folks that are locked away, and not saying that they were right, but you locked away for a long time when really, you know, they could have sentenced you to be able to do, you know, community control. Right. And you know, some other things, but we live in a punitive type of country, man, where, you know, the best way, you know, to is to lock Black men up, and that's the best way to keep us from really moving forward and being pillars in our community, and at least being there for our kids.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely. I know that a lot of these juvenile facilities across the country have started trying to change into therapeutic settings where they're doing more mental health with the youth, and they're doing more restorative with the youth. But a lot of times we see that when the youth go home, it's different when you're in a structured environment to when you're in an unstructured environment. How can we get programs that will wrap around our youth when they touch the streets?
I think it goes, you know, again, man, we gotta make sure that when they getting back out there, that they're still receiving counseling. Man, shouldn't end when you leave the institution.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so we got to continue to promote that,
mm-hmm.
which also means that, you know, even though I'm a Black therapist and I get a lot of folks that be like, I only want to see a Black male or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I got 2 therapists right now. Both of them is white. I got a white woman and a white man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say that they can't, you know, that they don't have the ability to work with us.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to find the one that has, you know, that has the white, that has the right fit. But we got to promote that, though.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are in charge of, and people who are in these positions have to be the ones to promote it.
Mm-hmm.
But that, again, that also means that we have to be visible in areas and spaces where these vulnerable populations need to see us. We're not visible enough in places to where, you know, they need to see us.
Mm-hmm.
We're visible in places where they're used to seeing us at.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not visible enough, and where we really need to be seen. And, you know, yeah, like Angela said, like, you know, like I said before, is that, I mean, think about how many Black counselors you know, man.
Right.
Mm-hmm. How many Black psychologists you know?
Right.
When the last time you heard of what they have on a career day, and you saw a Black therapist or a Black teacher
mm-hmm.
that showed up for career day?
Right.
We gotta promote that.
Now, when you speak about people of different races addressing mental health and things of that nature, is it easier? How can I say? Is it better for them to understand the culture and not be so sympathetic, but understand the culture of the individuals that they're serving?
Yeah, I think it's not only just understanding, you know, the culture. We talk about, as Black therapists, man, we talk a lot about being culturally competent, and we talk about, you know, these microaggressions that we see. I think at the end of the day, you know, we want to be connected to people who genuinely care.
Mm-hmm.
Who genuinely care and want to help. And trust me, man, if you somebody Black and you get a white therapist, you can easily, when the first moment you walk into that session, you're gonna be able to tell whether it's gonna work out or not.
Mm-hmm.
But for white folks and Black folks, being culturally competent is different.
Mm-hmm.
For white folks, being culturally competent is really acknowledging, you know, some things that they ain't never had to acknowledge before.
Right.
Number one, being able to acknowledge their own biases and that they do have them, regardless of what you say, acknowledging that racism does exist, right? Like that requires some insightful shit that, white folks got to be, they got to be willing to admit, a lot of the detriment of and acknowledging systemic racism in some of our primary institutions that are detrimental to Black and brown people. We still, in understanding how slavery, it still impacts us to this day, how we still trying to play catch up to them.
And as you said that being incarcerated is a form of slavery, because you don't even own your own body. You're not allowed to mark yourself. You're not allowed to relieve pressure off yourself or anything else. So that's a form of slavery. And those individuals who get incarcerated and go back to being incarcerated, they don't understand that they're opening themselves up for slavery.
Yeah, but and so part of that means for us, with the amount of access that we have to information, there should be no reason why that we don't know some of the stuff that we should know. And that goes back to what I was saying before, how we don't do ourselves, a lot. We do ourselves a lot of disservice because we become ignorant to the things that we really need to be, locked in on. They pass laws every single day about stuff that impacts us, and we have no freaking clue. Not only do we not have no clue, but we ain't the people who need to go out and vote the most. They ain't going out to vote. So they don't even know unless it's something that, like passing the marijuana law, because it impacts them. They want to smoke weed. So about that law. You may not read it, but you're gonna go past that law. But you ain't gonna go and pass a law that could ultimately impact, have an impact on your freedom. Because we're not taking the time to be, to be aware. Because it's like, well, it ain't in my back, it's whatever. But we gotta be better than that, though. And it all starts with our local legislators and councilmen, stuff like that. We gotta look. We'll go, and when a white officer kills a Black man, and be quick to go, and march and do all this stuff. I want us to have that same energy when it comes to, pouring resources in our community, making sure that we have equal education, curbing violence in our own communities. I ain't saying that white people should get a pass, but we killing ourselves more than they are.
Indeed, we're helping out the depopulation of the situation.
Absolutely,
I want to ask both of your questions since you're talking about this. Like, before somebody's coming home, are there reform counseling sessions inside the prison system for them to prepare themselves for the outside? Or is that just more waiting for, well, when you get out, you're on your own, basically, to see a counselor?
I think it varies from state to state, and institution to institution. And I think it depends on, if you somebody who you done did your time, meaning that you about to be released, you ain't about to be on parole or whatever the case may be, you just about to be released, you ain't thinking about no counseling. You probably thinking about you in survival mode. Where am I gonna live? First, how am I gonna eat, and how am I gonna make some money? The research says the first 90 days is the most critical point in a person's reentry back to society. What they do in them 90 days is going to dictate whether they go back to prison between, in the next 1 to 3 years. And those things are critical.
Indeed. I know for myself, I work at a facility in the District of Columbia, and a lot of individuals who are coming home from federal prison and federal facilities, they have to take courses in restorative justice, and they have to take some reentry programs, and they have to. Some of them have to sign up to be credible messengers when for when they come home, because
Yeah.
the District of Columbia is big on prison reform. So it's a lot of individuals who work for the District of Columbia who are formerly incarcerated. It's easier in the District of Columbia to deal with prison reform and things like that and have them ready to come home. Now, I know that we're getting close to the end of the show, Mr. Wilson, and I know that we spoke about your book previously.
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure that individuals know where they can get your book and the name of your book and different platforms that it's on.
Yeah, man. So it's called Lionheart, coming from where I'm from. It came out in 2014. I self-published. I'm blessed, man. That book has probably sold about 7,000 or 8,000 copies, man. It won a national award back in 2016. It gets used in a lot of classrooms and stuff around the country, man. It's on Amazon. You can, buy it on Amazon. I believe it's on Kindle. It's on Nook and like Barnes and Noble. If you want to get the book directly from me, because I tell people, look, if you buy it off Amazon gonna take 80% of the profit,
Mhm.
right? They just, it just is what it is. If you reach out to me, find me on social media. If you go to my IG page, type in The Roar of Truth. That's TheRoar. TheTruth, The Roar of Truth, and connect with me. Shoot me a DM and say I want the book, and I can get you a signed copy. You can also find me on Facebook. Just type in my name, Rayshawn L. Wilson. Connect with me there. But outside of that, it's on Amazon, man. If you want to get it off Amazon, please do. Buy it. It's a good book, man. It gets used in a lot of colleges and stuff, man. I'm just blessed. And let me be clear, I've been out, man, since '97, and God's still working on me, right? So even though I got these degrees or what have you, I'm in counseling. I'm dealing with my own trauma and stuff from growing up. I told y'all my mom died in prison, and didn't know my dad, so I'm still dealing with and dealing with stuff that's caught up with me as an adult. And a lot of times, man, you don't realize, for people like me who are in the business of helping people, what I realize is that I'm able to continue to help people in a variety of different ways once I continue to deal with my own shit. Right? That's how the universe works. Like, there's certain areas that I can't help people because I'm still dealing with my own stuff.
Right.
So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I don't think, and I'll tell you, you listen, how much this has blessed me, man, because I realize that when I'm able to talk about this, man, just how much I'm passionate about it, it's helping me to live my truth, and help to educate, motivate, and inspire other people to live their truth, man. So salute to y'all. And anytime y'all want me back on board to talk about, mental health stuff, anything dealing with mass incarceration, I'm real big on Black mentorship stuff as well. Man, y'all brothers have me on, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But before we go, I want to ask you a question before we go and before we end the show.
Absolutely. Take your time.
How important is it for you as a individual who's been behind the wall, and now you're doing what you're doing, and you spoke about your time as a probation officer, how you move your family away from the environment that you're actually working in?
Oh man, that's easy. I placed myself, my degrees, man, has afforded me the ability, to get decent paying jobs to where I can afford to not have my kids and my family environments where I grew up in. I told them, look, it's almost like what Jay-Z said. Jay-Z said in one of his songs, I hustled and sold crack so you didn't have to.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm placing my kids in a position to where, they don't have to be out there, doing that. But, I was a probation officer very early in my career, and I was really young, at the time. And it was just an opportunity, quite frankly, to have a job. I was only making $20,000 a year, but you couldn't tell me shit.
Right.
Because I had a job. I was able to, I had just got married at that time with my first wife, and I was able to bring home some form of paycheck.
Right.
You know what I mean? So for me, it's about creating opportunities so that my kids don't ever have to, if my kids go out here, man, and they teenagers, they 16, and I got 5 total, and one of my oldest son did federal time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So my 2 youngest, though, if they go out here and hustle, man, this is because that's what they chose to do.
Mm-hmm.
I hustle because I had to, not because I wanted to.
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference.
And definitely.
I hustle because wasn't nobody out there that was going to feed me. And I know slow feet don't eat.
That's it. That's it. Definitely.
Right?
So. Definitely so.
So when you hungry, you resorting to, a lion going to go get his meal how he was taught as a cub. He going to go out there and find it.
Indeed. Indeed. But thank you so much for coming on, Mr. Wilson. And we appreciate all our followers, listeners, and those who are viewing. And also, too, want to say, make sure y'all tune in tomorrow, because we'll be talking about something similar with individuals from the Father's Love Foundation. These are individuals who go back into the streets and give love to the youth who are fatherless and dealing with incarcerated parents. Okay? It's your time, bro.
Absolutely. Peace and blessings. Once again, we want to thank each and every one for coming on. Want to thank the comments and our commentaries and our guests, Brother Rayshawn Wilson. I might have to call him my cousin right now because we do share same last name. It's W-wise. You know what I mean? It's all good. Excellent presentation, my brother. You have a home here. You're not a home away from home. You have a home right here on Real to Real 360. And of course, we want you to come back as soon as you can. You just let us know. Get in touch with Josh and Mel. We're going to lock you in because you have a lot of information, a lot of insight that even enlighten me to be like and more encouraging to build with more brothers and sisters out there before they make wrong decisions.
I appreciate that, man. Again, y'all don't know how moving this was for me. Y'all motivated me and got me thinking, in terms of maybe I should be doing me a podcast or something, man. And so y'all brothers connect with me, offline too, on social media.
Give us 2 minutes afterwards, and we're gonna discuss something right quick.
Okay, I got you, man. No problem.
Okay, I'm gonna just hold y'all back, and I'm gonna do what I do.
All right, bro.
Peace and blessings, everybody. Once again, thank you for tuning in to the Real to Real 360 show. It was a great episode. Shout out to Dr. Harris, 100% Q, who always keeping us down and keeping us locked in and loaded. And we salute you. Peace to the nation of Gods and Earths, to all the 5%ers. We love you. To all the human families of the planet Earth, we got much love, peace, and happiness to you with our high salute. And this is the Real to Real 360 show. And I am DJ K Wise, and we are saying peace. We are out.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're starting to come to the end of the show. Right now, I want to take the time out and thank our guests for coming on. Also, too, I want to make sure that y'all listening and subscribing. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And keep sharing. Because we're going to keep bringing y'all the real content. You know what I mean? So, DJ KY, brother, take us up out of here, son. Peace.
Peace. Peace. Where's everybody? Hey, man, you know, it's crazy. You know, at 16, I was incarcerated and I did 2 years. I did a year and a half, really. And it was definitely interesting, you know what I mean, to say the least. It was definitely interesting with the things that you say because it resonated with me because I didn't want to go into corrections. Um, it was an opportunity coming home as a youthful offender, record being sealed. And my mother told me to take the civil service test. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's pretty much where I've been since then. So, but I want to salute you for all the work that you've been doing with the youth, and dealing with the babies is hard, man. Dealing with the babies is definitely hard. So
Yeah, it is, man.
I want to salute you. And
You
also,
ever see yourself in, like, when you see some of the youths that you're dealing with, job, matter of fact, like, do you see signs that shows like, yo, you know what, I was that dude, where it makes you feel, you know, it's like, to me, it's a humbling thing to feel like I did something that I know I have to reach out to you because you were me. And if I can give you the best advice that I could, if I could have gave it to me all over again, this is what I'm gonna do with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I would even venture to say that I probably don't do as much as I should be doing, you know, with these vulnerable populations and these youth, which is why, you know, I want to get this nonprofit for children of incarcerated parents, man, because I'm passionate about